This is Lauren Steiner. I'm here in front of Mercado La Paloma, and I am here for a breakfast briefing that we have put together for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is visiting Los Angeles today. Hey Alex, I know you want to eat, but do you want to say hi to the live stream audience?
Hey everyone, hey everybody tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning in and for joining in our discussion about how we're going to organize better and how we're going to push these issues better, and I'm looking forward to it.
Great, thanks.
I'm Brittany Craig, a local activist and organizer. I organize with Black Lives Matter Los Angeles. Los Angeles is situated on Tongva and Quiche land, which has been twice colonized. We like to acknowledge that as we move forward in our programming. As organizers in a bustling diverse city like Los Angeles, which experiences great disparities in wealth, housing, health, and much more, it's critical that we ground ourselves in a fight for collective freedom from oppression. Through solidarity building, intersectional organizing, and group-centered leadership, we can build an LA and a world that's safe and inviting for all of its residents. We'd like to thank Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her team for joining us for an intimate meal and conversation. Many of us are young organizers who also see ourselves reflected in the journey that Alexandria is taking as an organizer who's building space and capacity for organizers to continue doing their work even better.
My name is Norma Benitez, proud community member of South Central LA, and for us here at Esperanza Community Housing Corporation, we welcome you. I think everyone here, if this is your first time to Mercado, to Esperanza, welcome. If not, thank you for coming back and supporting and feeding the energy of this space. Esperanza Community Housing Corporation is a nonprofit organization who has been established here in El Sur Centro for over 29 years, really focusing on economic development, affordable housing, the arts and culture, environmental justice, and health.
My name's Michelle Sutter. I'm the director and co-founder of MOVI, Money Out Voters In. You folks may know us from Prop 59, the Overturned Citizens United Act, which California voters passed in 2016. I'm here this morning because of an horrific bill that has come up very suddenly in the California legislature through something, if those of you who know the legislature know, a gut and amend process. So AB 84 looks to be the brainchild of Anthony Rendon. I needn't tell this group who Anthony Rendon is, but what it essentially does is create 4 new slush funds for unlimited money that would be controlled by the caucus leaders in the California legislature. So the Republican Assembly, Republican Senate, Democratic Assembly, which is Anthony Rendon, and Democratic Senate. And so this is literally blowing an entire new portal. And we are so offended by this because we instructed our representatives with Prop 59 to do exactly the opposite. And Alexandria, I'm going to give you a packet that not only has the objective analysis that the California Clean Money Campaign has done about this, and they did try to be objective. As of tomorrow, all of our organizations are asked to get our letters either in support or opposition. Obviously, we're going to be filing a letter in opposition. I can't speak to California Clean Money, but I think we can guess where they're going. If by chance you could write a 1-line letter in opposition, and I will get all of that to you, I think that could go a long way. And what we want from the activists, there are 5 members of this committee, 4 Democrats, 1 Republican. All 4 Democrats are here in Southern California. Henry Stern is the chair. Ben Allen, the former chair, is still on the committee. Connie Leyva is from San Bernardino and Pomona, and Bob Hertzberg is from the Valley, and we need to come down heavy and hard on them, and I ask for all of your support. Thank you.
My name is Nayeli Kobo. I'm 17 years old, and I started my environmental activism at the age of 9. I grew up 30 feet across the street from an oil well called Alanco that was exposing toxic emissions that made not only me, but the rest of my community sick. In my personal experience, I got body spasms that got to the point where I couldn't walk. I have asthma. That's something I'm always going to have to live with now. heart palpitations, having to use a heart monitor for several weeks, migraines, nosebleeds that got to the point where I couldn't sleep horizontally anymore. I had to sleep sitting down because I would choke on my own blood at night. Disgusting, I know, sorry. Truth hurts. So unfortunately, it's the reality for so many Angelenos. About 580,000 Angelenos live within a quarter of a mile or less to an active oil well, and that needs to change. So I believe in all of you guys and in you that you guys are going to help us with Stand Delay, Stand Together Against Neighborhood Drilling Los Angeles. We are trying to pass a 2,500-foot health and safety buffer zone between oil extraction and sensitive land. So if you guys want to help support that, that'd be cool. I can give you more information on that. I'm also a founding member of People Not Pozos, which means People Not Wells. And we are a grassroots campaign in South LA that predominantly fights and putting an end to the Allengo oil site. We are temporarily shut down. It's been 5 years that we've shut that well down, and we're trying to make it permanently shut down. 5 seconds? 15. 15, okay. That didn't count. September 8th, we are having a movement to call Governor Jerry Brown out and have him, give him a last call to action and make him do something. So if everybody wants to support, that'd be awesome.
My name is Kirsten Magnuson. I direct the Healthcare for All's LA chapter with Maureen Cruz. We're an organization that is statewide. We started back in the 90s with the sole objective of establishing single payer in California at a state level to, one, make sure that everyone has comprehensive health care, and two, make sure that we have health equity throughout the state for all 39+ million Californians. So we were behind the studies and the bills that did make it past the legislature and got vetoed by Governor Schwarzenegger. We are 100% volunteer, grassroots, unpaid volunteers up and down the state. As everyone here knows, because everyone here helps us, this is a group effort. Medicare for All is moving forward in this state and in this country, thank you. And for this legislative session, we're part of the Healthy California Coalition. It's spearheaded by the California Nurses Association that's backing the sister bill to your New York healthcare. We had, as everyone has noted, a Democratic supermajority in both houses, a governor who ran for president in 1992 on the platform of single payer, and still, Senate Bill 562 made it past our Senate only to be killed in darkness by Anthony Rendon. And these people did not take that, and they rose up and led actions all over, from the streets of Hollywood to the halls of Sacramento. We marched in the People's Parade, the Rose Parade, wearing these shirts. We rolled over the hill. It was, instead of "this land is your land, this plan is your plan, this plan is my land," from California to the New York Island. And then we see the payoff. We've got Maria Estrada now on the ballot challenging Anthony Rendon. We've got people at the top of the ticket, Kevin De Leon, etc., who are championing this cause. And we at Healthy California, we are working to spin toward a Healthy Majority campaign, where we work with grassroots to find these people like Maria who can challenge the party machinery and the incumbencies, so that we can actually be represented, we can actually have healthcare finally for all our 39.5.
Thank you. So I'm up here today because young people in America have inherited a world in a crumbling state of affairs, really. Whether it's wealth inequality or climate change, we've been tasked with cleaning up the mess that prior generations have left for us, all while drowning in student debt. However, what I find both unique and encouraging is that the story doesn't stop there. Millennials have found a bold, revolutionary spirit, and here in LA, we are embodying it every day as we face the problems impacting us head on. And although the number of issues we're working on is numerous, arguably one of the most pressing ones is the state of financial struggle that students are facing, especially here in Los Angeles. In our city, 19% of community college students are homeless. So let that set the stage for the real under-recognized weight of this struggle. And what we found is that the problem is linked to a number of things. First off, housing is entirely unaffordable, both on campus and off. It is not uncommon here for over 5 students to be sharing a studio apartment with other students who don't pay rent, coming and going for temporary shelter. Our goal has been to publicize this issue. We're now in the beginning stages of fighting it. So this comes with one primary demand. Campuses must be required to set aside a percentage of their student housing each semester to be accessible at no cost for qualifying students. On top of this, surrounding off-campus housing needs to be subject to rent control. Having said that, we also recognize that these financial struggles are strongly connected to a deeper issue, and that's the skyrocketing costs of education in general. Colleges, universities, trade schools must be tuition-free because higher education is a necessity that has become priced as a luxury. We have seen good success in pursuing this goal, recently playing a direct role in passing AB 19, a bill giving the first year of community college free. I think young people today are facing up against a lot, but we are also working on a lot, and we're going to keep going until we win.
Hi, Alexandria. My name is Hassan. I'm part of this coalition, that is actually around with other organizations that are fighting this issue, right? Where families are being separated. I actually come from undocumented family, and myself is undocumented. Actually, I cannot be deported, and even speaking about that is really scary, but that's the reality that we live here. This organization is fighting, definitely following the money on really racist corporations like the GO. We just had 2 actions recently. We're pushing, making sure that a lot of people that are on the Pepperdine campuses, which is in Culver City, know that this corporation is actually helping the detention centers and also providing jobs for people to do this fascist work. Honestly, it's scary as it is, that's what we are. And also, I would like to ask you a question. I know we heard from YouTube videos and the websites on what your stance on abolish. So let me ask you this question. Let's say you actually, not only abolish ICE, right? But completely reform how this, country holds its immigration policies. But what would your ideas, immigration policies look like?
The biggest resistance that I think we have in a movement is that we've won a really big battle, and that now that people have seen how far ICE will go in they'll go as far as separating children from their parents, the brutality that is kind of baked into this organization. I think we've gone a long way in winning over a lot of people and being open to the stance of abolish ICE, but the biggest resistance that we have is, if not ICE, then what? And so I think for me, what's really important is that I believe that all of our best positions are formed in conjunction with the grassroots, that we continue to take this form of bottom-up organizing into bottom-up governance. So for me, in terms of my position, I have a very strong goal of working with grassroots organizations to find and renew and reimagine an immigration system that is rooted in human dignity, that is connected to foreign policy, that is connected around decarceration, and is also has a goal of documentation, has a goal of ensuring that people can migrate fully documented in a way that is secure and safe. Because I think one of the situations that we have here is that, especially this administration, is using undocumentation as a weapon. So they are de-documenting. They are creating undocumented populations. They are ending DACA. They are ending TPS to create a problem and target people who are already here. So, so for me, in terms of what that system looks like, I think what we do is we do what we've always done. We reconnect with the grassroots, find out and develop those demands. And I think that when we have some of those specific demands beyond what we're ending, beyond ending family detention, but also how we are going to replace this system, I think that's when we're going to hit that tipping point where we can get kind of a lot of it done at once. So this is my first time in California, ever. I'm a real Bronx girl. So this is my first time ever in California, and I'm just so struck by what I already see as an incredibly strong organizing culture out here. The solidarity out here is just so striking to me. And I'm just like, how do I bring this back to New York? Because I think in New York we have a lot of incredible organizing that goes on, but
you know, I think that, so the thing that I often say with folks that we work with is that cynicism is a weapon. And so cynicism is a weapon that is used against our communities. Cynicism is a weapon that is used against our movements to create suspicion amongst one another, to say, oh, this person's not good enough. Oh, this person was imperfect in this one way at this one time. We can never work with them again. And that is what smashes grassroots movements. And to see how you all have defied all of that is just really incredible. The idea, like this right now, is almost inconceivable in some parts of New York City. And so I'm very curious as to some of these organizing principles and how you guys have overcome that, how you all have overcome that, to come together kind of at a table like this and to break bread like this so regularly. Because I know that that's one of the things that I see, like, oh, you know, oh, this person's not radical enough. Oh, they, you know, their view on this isn't radical enough. And for me, coming from the background as an educator, I'm always like, oh, these are opportunities for education, not opportunities to, you know, create or identify an enemy per se. So I'm so curious as to how you all are so strong and how you develop such a strong organizational culture out here, because, you know, I think we need it. I think this is truly an example for everywhere across the country. I know, especially on the East Coast, but in other places. But so that's my question. I'd be interested in hearing your 2 cents on that. I'm just very honored to be here. I'm at my heart, at my soul, I'm an organizer. And, you know, these last 5 weeks have been crazy, but, you know, 2 months ago, I am a person sitting at this table, and now I have a weird other table. But my goal is to always stay at that table. And so, you know, thank you. And I think the people who deserve these seats in power are the people that are sitting at these tables right now. And we may shy away from it, and we may say, oh, no, you know, but that is the work that needs to get done. Because when we kind of consider ourselves too separate from these seats, I think we have to realize that we do have a special relationship. Our job is to hold power accountable. But who better to hold that power than those who understand these positions best? So I want to thank everybody here for the organizing that you're doing. And I'm interested to hear and learn more about the organizing culture out here in LA. And I'm also extremely interested to hear some of the specific issue organizing that you all have done, because these issues are so deeply intersectional. There is no one way you can talk about things like criminal justice reform without talking about other things like housing, cost of living, gentrification, healthcare, immigration status, you know, acceptance of gender expanding peoples and Native peoples and so on. And so I'm just very interested to take notes on a culture of solidarity. And I'm here to answer, you know, any questions that I may have insight on. But ultimately, I think, you know, I acknowledge that I don't have all the answers on things. I just have kind of the glimmers of insight in what we are able to accomplish and how we've been able to kind of move our ball forward. But at the end of the day, as I said on the campaign trail, our main goal was to make New York 14 the people's seat again. And that is kind of the work that I know you all are doing out here. So thank you all so much for having me.
This was a beautiful experience, as normally as putting together an event like this, a chaotic experience. Came with lots of love and lots of struggle and some sleepless nights, but we're so amazed and thankful for all of you in this room right now, and the fact that we get to come together as a community to welcome Alexandria to Los Angeles and to California.
Divest LA took the cue from Seattle, which divested their municipal funds from Wells Fargo. We enacted a campaign last year that did the same thing. In a relatively short period of time, with a lot of focused effort, we actually got Los Angeles to divest their funds from Wells Fargo. When you divest, the only other options are other Wall Street banks. It's an important symbolic victory. We're now going for a systemic shift by doing something completely new and building something new from the ground up, creating a public bank of Los Angeles, and we would like to see the proliferation of public banks across the entire nation. That's going to create a paradigm shift for public finance. Thank you.
You said in an interview that you try to engage things from a humanitarian perspective first and foremost, policy second, right? And You've had a lot of compelling statements about the Palestinian plight, what's happening to Palestinians recently, Palestinians in Gaza being mowed down at point-blank range simply for, engaging in a nonviolent demonstration, literally walking to a border fence and being sniped. And so my question for you as an organizer who's worked on Palestine for several years in community with a lot of people who faced intense repression, even for simply advocating for these types of issues, is how do you see yourself getting to a point where you can engage Palestine from an ethical standpoint rather than looking at it from an solely international law?
I'm trying to access, I think, this issue the way that any responsible ally does. And so by breaking bread with those who are closest to the pain on this issue and learning from them, taking lead from them on how I can responsibly advocate without clumsily knocking over blocks on the way there. And so one of the things that I find too that I think is important in accessing issues is to see ourselves and others. And so for me, my starting point is the fact that my family does come from a population of legislated second-class citizenship that has resulted in a humanitarian crisis, and that is Puerto Rico. And so to see myself and others and to be able to have those connection points into those communities, it's really important for me to feel like I am doing this responsibly. And so by sitting down and speaking with organizers like yourself, counterparts like yourself, and engaging in this movement in a way where, again, I feel comfortable enough to the level in which I can be informed and advocate in the correct ways so that I can be an effective champion and ally. Is kind of, I think it's a process that I'm trying to mindfully go through. So I think it's really important that that you are standing up and asking this question right now, because it doesn't get answered and it doesn't get moved forward unless people, individuals and organizers like yourself stand up and take up that space and make it a conversation. So I really thank you for that.
There are 5 issues in the Black community that we constantly deal with: mass incarceration, police violence, education, gentrification, and wealth disparities. You are going to go into a Congress where those issues are rarely talked about, never discussed in real ways or advanced. We need a voice to add with Maxine's and Karen's and other people to begin to address those 5 issues. Now, there are more, clearly, but at least those 5. Mass incarceration, police violence, the wealth gap, education, and gentrification. Gentrification is becoming a national issue for Black people. We want development without displacement. And that's why we are working to pass Proposition 10, the repeal of cost of housing. What we are looking for is a voice to connect with Maxine, Karen, Barbara, and others in Congress to advance those issues. So we ask you to be a part of that voice.
So I just got into LA last night, and yesterday I had the great privilege and honor of being able to sit down with Congresswoman Lee. And one of the things that we talked about is making sure that poverty isn't a dirty word in Congress anymore. People refuse to say it. They refuse to talk about working class people, the poor, the working poor, and we've only talked about middle class Americans for 20 years. But there aren't middle class Americans anymore in this country. We have to be able to take the pain and admit that we are a working poor nation. We are a nation of the working poor. And when we admit that, then we can fix it. And as far as all the other issues go, New York 14 is the home of Rikers Island. And so there are a few other districts that understand the toll of mass incarceration and police brutality in the way that New York 14 does. And we know that all these issues that you speak of are connected, because when you don't have a home to go to, and when you don't have a home to go home to, after being kind of funneled into a system of mass incarceration, then it results in displacement, it results in poverty, it results in basically a system of it is systemic injustice. It is a systemic economic, social, and racial injustice. The Bronx is home to one of the poorest zip codes in America. That is a 10-minute subway ride from the richest zip code in America. Wealth inequality is a tool of perpetuating these same social and racial injustices that have continuously have been perpetuated in the United States. So one of the things that we're kind of exploring is 21st century New Deal legislation. So that's one of the ideas that we're exploring. And in the same way that the New Deal baked in a multi-generational racial wealth gap with redlining, we have to take the opposite approach and ensure that we approach a 21st century New Deal with targeted investments in communities that have been historically redlined. So I understand that a lot of these things are intersectional, but a concentration of focus in mass incarceration gets directly to the legacy of Jim Crow and slavery in the United States. So thank you.
One of the issues that I wanted to find out about was that nobody talks about Indigenous people and Indigenous causes. When you said that the Bronx is away from one of the poorest, I think, zip codes, you said? Well, that's not true. If you want to look at the 3 poorest places in North America, all 3 are reservations. And our people are ignored. Even in Los Angeles, in the 2 years that I've been director, I've made sure that they weren't ignored. Today, we have these events, and the indigenous people always give a prayer and are recognized for being here. And I'm glad that I heard that we were recognizing the people whose land we're really on. See, because as indigenous people, this is not America or United States. This is still our land, and it always will be. And so I'm glad that we're waking up to that. My question for you is, are you familiar with UN DRIP, and what are your thoughts on UN DRIP?
We won with a broad-based coalition in New York, and my story actually started at Standing Rock. And it was in visiting there, and really like the deep and profound personal transformation that I experienced just by bearing witness and breaking bread was extremely important. And I think also one of the experiences that I had there as well is that as a Latina, we have this interesting relationship with Native peoples, and that we know we are descendant. But for me, especially as a Puerto Rican woman, Taino peoples were completely wiped out. And so it was one of those things where once I got on that land, I felt myself there, but also struggled to kind of figure out how I was home. We have this great original sin on this nation, particularly, and it continues to this day through this system of reservations. It is morally unsustainable, and figuring out how we right that wrong is, it's something that I value, but it's also something that I understand that I need to be led by in this issue, because it is an enormously complex issue where we built everything on an injustice. And so when we correct that injustice, it means that we have to change everything. But that doesn't mean that we have to be scared of that. Because the closer we move to being a moral place, then the better and more humane and harmonious we can be as a society.
Can I ask you a quick question? Sure. Bernie understands that you have to organize a political revolution to pressure the politicians.
Yes.
You talked about a progressive slate in Congress, which is a great idea. How are you going to make that different from the Progressive Caucus? Because they currently don't do that. They don't come from movements.
Well, I think that internally is what it's about, in that we have to identify those and create candidates that do come from movements. So it's not necessarily getting in and trying to make folks there movement people if they're not movement people. It's about getting more movement folks in there, which is why I'm supporting people like Cori Bush in St. Louis. She is a true movement candidate. Folks like Kanyela Ng out in Hawaii, truly movement candidates, because when they come from a place that requires grassroots support, that's much more effective and impactful than trying to convince those to get grassroots support.
Great. I'd love to have you on my show sometime.
Sure.
I have just been bringing you the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez Progressive Breakfast We were planning this for about 2 weeks. We're having meetings every night for the past week, and I think we were able to put together a really successful breakfast with activists. And the next event is going to be the lunch at the LA Theater Center.